Men don't do certain things for friends, no matter how close the friendship is. They don't consistently prioritize your time, emotionally check in, or adjust their plans to make space for you unless there's desire involved. When a man wants a woman, he shows intentional presence. He listens not to reply, but to understand. He remembers details because they matter to him. He steps up during moments of stress, not out of obligation, but instinct. Friendship is comfortable. Desire creates effort. So instead of decoding text or tone, watch behavior. When his actions are steady, protective, and emotionally invested, that's not friendliness, that's interest. And knowing the difference gives you clarity, confidence, and power in dating. Men compartmentalize relationships differently, and this is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in dating. Many people assume that men show the same emotional depth and behavioral patterns across friendships and romantic interest, but in reality, men tend to place people into very clear mental categories. A woman is either someone he feels platonic comfort with, or someone he feels romantic pull toward, and once that distinction is made, his behavior naturally shifts. In friendships, men value ease and low emotional demand. The connection is relaxed, situational, and requires minimal adjustment of their routine. There is no inner pressure to impress, protect, or emotionally invest beyond basic respect. Even close female friends are kept within boundaries that feel safe and familiar. The effort level stays consistent but limited. Romantic interest, however, activates a completely different internal system. When a man desires a woman, he becomes more intentional without being asked. He thinks ahead. He anticipates her reactions. He notices changes in her mood and feels compelled to respond. This isn't because he's trying to perform, it's because attraction creates emotional responsibility in his mind. He starts to feel that what he does matters. This is why actions are more reliable than words. A man may verbally express care for many people, but he will only reorganize his time, energy, and focus for the woman he wants. He will stretch himself, emotionally and practically, in ways he simply doesn't for friends. That stretch is the key indicator. If his life subtly reshapes to include you, that's not accidental. Understanding this distinction removes a lot of confusion. Instead of wondering why a man is sending mixed signals, you can observe whether he is treating you as someone who fits comfortably into his existing world, or someone he is actively making room for. Men don't usually linger in the middle for long. Their behavior quietly tells you which category you're in. When you recognize how men compartmentalize relationships, you stop overanalyzing small gestures and start paying attention to patterns. And patterns, consistent effort, emotional presence, and prioritization are where real clarity lies. Investment signals are far more meaningful than verbal reassurance, because attraction that stays in the mind eventually shows up in behavior. Many people are taught to listen closely to what a man says, but in reality, what he does, especially when it costs him something, is the clearest indicator of intention. Men don't invest deeply unless there is a strong internal reason driving them. Time is the first currency of investment. When a man is genuinely interested, he doesn't just find time. When it's convenient, he makes time. He rearranges his schedule, shows up consistently, and protects plans with you from being disrupted. This doesn't happen for casual connections. Friends fit into leftover spaces. A woman he wants becomes part of his structure. Consistency is the second signal, and it matters more than intensity. Anyone can show excitement in bursts, but sustained effort requires emotional motivation. When a man checks in regularly, follows through on what he says, and maintains momentum even when life gets busy, it shows that you are not an afterthought. Consistency is effort stretched over time. Emotional effort is the most overlooked signal. This is the willingness to engage beyond surface-level interaction. A man who wants a woman doesn't just talk about events, he talks about meaning. He asks questions that lead somewhere. He listens carefully and adjusts his behavior based on what he learns. Emotional effort requires vulnerability, and men are selective about where they place that risk. What's important to understand is that investment is rarely dramatic. It's subtle but steady. It shows up in follow-ups, in remembering small details, in offering support without being asked. These behaviors don't come from politeness, they come from priority. When you learn to read investment signals, dating becomes clearer and calmer. You stop chasing reassurance and start observing alignment. And alignment between words, actions, and effort is how real interest quietly proves itself. Men don't emotionally risk themselves in friendships the way they do in romantic interest, and understanding this distinction changes how you interpret closeness. Emotional risk means exposure, the possibility of being rejected, misunderstood, or losing control of the situation. For most men, that level of vulnerability is not casually offered. It is reserved. In friendships, emotional safety is the priority. Men keep conversations lighter, solutions, focused, or situational. Even when a friendship is warm and supportive, there are limits. He may joke, give advice, or show up when asked, but he rarely opens doors that make him feel emotionally dependent or deeply seen. This isn't emotional unavailability, it's emotional economy. Men instinctively conserve vulnerability. Romantic interest shifts this pattern. When a man is emotionally drawn to a woman, he begins to take risks he normally avoids. He shares uncertainty instead of certainty. He admits confusion, fear, or hope. He reveals opinions and feelings that could change how she sees him. This is significant because men are taught, often unconsciously, that vulnerability can weaken their position. Choosing to be emotionally open means choosing emotional exposure. This is why selective vulnerability is such a strong indicator of desire. When a man talks about his past mistakes, his internal pressure, or his future doubts, he is not just being open. He is inviting emotional closeness which carries risk. Friends don't require that risk, attraction does. Another form of emotional risk is responsiveness. When a man cares romantically, your reactions begin to matter more. Your approval, disappointment, or distance affects him internally. In friendships, emotional reactions are easier to brush off. With desire, emotional feedback hits closer to home. He may adjust his behavior, reflect on his actions, or worry about missteps, not because he's insecure, but because he's invested. This risk-taking is often quiet. It doesn't always look like dramatic confessions. Sometimes it's asking deeper questions. Sometimes it's staying present during emotional moments instead of changing the subject. Sometimes it's choosing honesty when silence would be easier. These moments are subtle, but they require courage. Understanding this helps you avoid mislabeling emotional restraint as lack of interest or friendliness as intimacy. The key is not how much he talks, but how much he risks. Emotional investment always leaves fingerprints: openness, responsiveness, and a willingness to be affected by you. When you learn to recognize emotional risk-taking, you stop guessing where you stand. Men don't gamble emotionally without a reason. If he's placing emotional weight in the connection, it's because the connection matters. Protective instincts in men are not automatic or universal, they are selective and purpose-driven. A man may be polite, kind, or respectful toward many people, but true protectiveness emerges only when emotional attachment and desire are present. This instinct is not about control or dominance, it's about responsibility. When a man wants a woman, he begins to feel internally responsible for her emotional and sometimes physical well-being, even without consciously deciding to. With friends, men operate on equality and independence. Everyone is assumed to manage their own emotions, boundaries, and outcomes. If something goes wrong, there may be sympathy, but there is rarely a deep internal pull to intervene unless explicitly asked. Friendship does not activate the instinct to shield, guide, or step in proactively. There is care, but not guardianship. Romantic desire changes this dynamic. When a man wants a woman, he becomes more alert to potential threats, emotional, social, or situational. He pays attention to how others treat her. He notices when she's uncomfortable, overwhelmed, or undervalued. Often, he steps in quietly, offering reassurance, solutions, or presence without being prompted. This is not performative, it's instinctive. This protectiveness also shows up emotionally. A man who is romantically invested will try to prevent emotional harm, even if it means adjusting his own behavior. He becomes more careful with his words. He avoids actions that might hurt or destabilize the connection. He may apologize more sincerely or take accountability more quickly because he feels the weight of impact. Friends don't trigger that level of emotional caution. Protective instincts are consistent, not dramatic. They are not about grand gestures or jealousy-fueled reactions. Instead, they show up in reliability. He checks that you got home safely. He follows up after difficult conversations. He offers support before you ask. These actions come from a quiet sense of, "I've got you," which does not exist in platonic bonds. This instinct is also future-oriented. A man who wants a woman thinks ahead. He considers how choices today might affect her tomorrow. He may offer guidance, encouragement, or boundaries not to control outcomes, but to reduce risk. That forward-thinking behavior is rarely extended to friends because the emotional stake is different. Understanding this helps you distinguish between friendliness and genuine interest. Kindness is broad, protectiveness is selective. When a man consistently shows concern for your emotional safety, respects your vulnerabilities, and steps up without needing direction, it's not coincidence, it's intention. Men don't activate protective instincts for everyone. When they do, it's because the connection has crossed a line from comfort into care and from care into desire. Patterns reveal truth more reliably than promises, because patterns require effort over time, while promises cost nothing in the moment. Many people get stuck trying to interpret what a man means, when the more important question is what he repeats. Repetitions where intention becomes visible. Anyone can say the right thing once. Only someone who is genuinely invested will do the right thing consistently. Promises often live in the future. They sound hopeful, reassuring, and emotionally satisfying, but they don't demand immediate change. A man can promise to call more, show up better, or be clearer without actually reorganizing his behavior. Patterns, on the other hand, live in the present. They are built through choices made again and again, even when it's inconvenient. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Intense moments can feel meaningful, but they can also be isolated. A man might express strong emotions, give compliments, or make big declarations, yet still disappear, delay, or remain emotionally unavailable. Intensity without follow-through creates confusion. Patterns create clarity. When a man wants a woman, his behavior stabilizes. He communicates in a predictable way. He shows up when he says he will. He follows conversations through instead of letting them fade. These aren't dramatic acts, they're reliable ones. Their reliability is not accidental. It requires intention, planning, and emotional presence. Patterns also show you how a man handles discomfort. Does he avoid difficult conversations, or does he engage respectfully? Does he withdraw when things get real, or does he lean in? These repeated responses matter far more than what he claims to want. Desire that can't tolerate discomfort rarely sustains itself. Another important pattern is prioritization. Watch where you consistently fall on his list. Are you included, considered, and protected over time, or only when it suits him? Men reveal value through placement. If you are repeatedly postponed, rescheduled, or emotionally sidelined, that is a pattern, not bad timing. Learning to trust patterns doesn't make you cynical, it makes you grounded. It shifts your focus from hoping someone will become consistent to observing whether they already are. This protects your emotional energy and helps you make decisions based on reality, not potential. When you choose to believe patterns over promises, you stop negotiating for clarity. The clarity is already there. Men don't accidentally maintain effort. If the behavior is steady, the interest is real. And if it isn't, no promise can replace what consistent action is meant to prove.